Uranium stocks could see a big run very soon like we saw back in March because the government is finally going to vote on the Russian Uranium Ban for the committee release. This is the ENR, the Senate side. There is a dual bill in the House. I'm going to explain exactly what the biggest nuclear utilities are saying about this because, believe it or not, they support this. And I'm going to show you the data. I've heard people out there saying that they don't believe this is going to be passed, that the U.S. can't ban enriched uranium from Russia, and that is false. We'll look at the numbers and I'll show you why, because the U.S. can get enrichment from other places and already does. And believe it or not, Russia is not the main place that the U.S. gets their enrichment from. I'll show you exactly what the utilities are saying in their surveys, and we're going to just look at the data, and you can decide, are we going to have a big run like we saw back in March and April? I think it's very possible, so go ahead and hit that like and subscribe, and I'm going to show you the data and let you decide. So comment down below, do you think this is going to happen? If so, tell me why, and if not, then I want to hear it as well. So this is going to be voted on Thursday, hopefully released from the committee. Now they could do amendments, but there's two bills that are going to hopefully get released, and this is to prohibit, obviously, the import of uranium from Russia. We already know that the heads of the committee, Barrasso and Manchin, they both support this. They both believe that we should ban the imports of Russian uranium. The other thing that they're going to hopefully release is the amendment of the Energy Act of 2020 to require the Secretary of Energy to establish programs to accelerate the availability of commercially produced high assay low enriched uranium in the United States, and to make it produced by the DOE available for the use in advanced nuclear reactors. So this is very good for the nuclear energy sector, both of these. And I'm going to show you in a minute that these two bills are being supported by the biggest nuclear energy utilities in the United States. So obviously these committees, if they release it, it's going to go to the Senate and the House each to be voted on, and then it'll go to the president if it passes. Constellation Energy actually does support, as I said, and I'm going to show you this data in a minute, but they said that they are willing to support the sanctions on Russian uranium if Washington decides they're necessary. The company has enough nuclear fuel to run its reactors for multiple years and is working with vendors to head off any potential supply disruption. So we're going to see, if this happens, not the lights go out. We're going to see new long-term contracting, the contracting that we've all been waiting for, the main thesis for the uranium bull run. Nuclear fuel processing is a part of the broader national security concerns, and the U.S. government regulates many aspects of the procurement of enriched uranium. We fully support the U.S. government sanctions and will support any limits it places on Russian nuclear fuel. The Constellation acknowledged that the restrictions have the potential to disrupt the U.S. nuclear industry. That's what I've been saying for multiple years. This is going to happen. Utilities, although the lights are not going to go out instantly because they do have fuel, believe it or not, they do have enough fuel, but these long-term contracts, what they need to buy for multiple years that they do these long-term contracts in, they do not have. So they will need to come back into the market to contract. Now, Constellation provided that this information that they are hedged well out into multiple years for uranium. They're U3O8 contracting 40% of the fuel costs, as a lot of us know. It's a big part of it, U3O8 contracting. That's what I think is going to start very soon. We are seeing this overfeeding coming back into the market. We're going to see Honeywell restart next year. And this is going to, I think, really run the prices up in the spot market as well as the long-term market. And they're already hedged out a couple years. And not every U.S. utility is like this, but they were smart. They hedged well in advance to secure supply and avoid these near-term cost variabilities. So if we're looking at the numbers here, this is the purchases of enriched services by owners and operators of U.S. civilian nuclear power reactors. We'll just call them COOs. Now, if you look at Russia, it was 3.9 million SWU. Now, overall, this was about 14 million. So you can see that this was about 2021 that we're talking about here, that it was around the $100 for this. And we're seeing record UF6 and SWU prices. And uranium U3O8 prices are next. That's what's really going to run next. And that's still a good amount, but it doesn't mean all the lights go out. And there are some other numbers here. So these are deliveries of uranium feed by the COOs. And if you can see, Russia last year, it was only 617,000 pounds. Now, overall, it was 34 million pounds. Okay. So everyone, hears that Russia supplies all this enriched uranium to the world. It does, but these companies still have uranium. If this was over here, if it was 2026, we would have a problem. But in this chart, you can see this is US and European utilities. Now we're somewhere around here, okay? Now the green here is the US. Now they, if they're 45, 49% still covered, then those lights don't go out. So the fact that people are saying that they don't think that the US could ban enriched uranium, that's totally false. They totally can, and I think that they are. It's one of the last things, obviously, to, part of these sanctions, but the same thing with Europe. This drop-off happens very quickly into 2023. Look at these numbers. They drop off very quickly, and they want to be contracted a lot sooner. They don't want to get over here. They don't want to get down to, 11% coverage. So these long-term contracts are coming very soon, and we're going to start to see that overfeeding. Now, this is another chart, very interesting. It's unfilled uranium market requirements of owners and operators of the US COOs. So visually, I kind of showed you that earlier, but the numbers just start to go up very quickly as the years go on in millions of pounds. And I really think that very soon we're going to start to see some big long-term contracting, very, very big, that needs to come back. If you want to see another visual, this kind of proves people wrong, saying that they don't think that the US could ban enrichment, because you can see here that these are 1 million pounds, 10 million pounds. This is multiple years out, that this is unfilled uranium market requirements. So obviously, as the years go on, it's going to go up a lot more, but it does not mean that the US is going to have no uranium just because they ban Russian uranium. It doesn't mean that this is going to stop overnight. Another visual, this is purchases of enrichment services by COOs, and this is from 2017 to 2021. And the biggest countries that obviously provide SWU, we can see Russia, it is not as much as it was in 2019, about 2.8 million SWU. Now, this number is obviously, if this drops off, the prices have to go up. Now, there already are long-term contractings being done, and short-term, we don't know exactly what the numbers specifically were for each, but it is about 14 million SWU last year for the COOs in the US. So this chart is alarming. 41 million pounds in 2021. This is what fuel was loaded into the US reactors. Domestic sourced, this could be still North America, Canada. It was only 3 million. So this shows that, when they're having to contract again, a lot of this could come from the US, okay? A lot of this foreign contracting is probably not going to happen as much. So what does that mean? Well, the US uranium producers are going to see a big uptick like we've never really seen before. Now, to segue what I was going into, that the US nuclear fuel operators, COOs, still have this inventory. You can see in 2021, only about 20 million pounds of uranium. And this is what I think is really going to be next. We're going to see this uptick happen very quickly in the U308 prices. Now, if you look at natural UF6, we're seeing record prices, and enriched UF6, they hold a lot of inventory. 100 over 100 million pounds of everything together. Now, this is all of the nuclear fuel operators in the US, but you see this fuel here, the blue, this is fabricated fuel not inserted into the reactors. This number needs to be a lot higher for these long-term contracts. I think when they start up these long-term contracts, this number is going to be well into the, tens, hundreds of millions of pounds that needs to come into contracting long-term. This means that the lights are not going to go out instantly. We can ban Russian enrichment, and there are plenty of other people out there. It does not mean that the prices are not going to go up. Prices are going to go up very high. We need to have this nuclear fuel renaissance again, especially in the US. So we've got the commercial inventories of uranium by owners. This was 2021. Now, if you see the number here is over 100 million pounds. This is for owners and operators of U.S. nuclear power reactors. Now, if you look at the U.S. brokers and traders, this is 25 million pounds. And then U.S. converters, enrichers, fabricators, this is about 8 million pounds. Just recently, especially when the war started, we're starting to see these numbers go up. We already see Sprott Physical Uranium Trust breaking out here, probably going to do the same. You know, once the uranium prices, U3O8 prices get higher, the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust is going to continue to buy. They're going to continue to raise money to buy. And a lot of investors, a lot of volume is going to come in there. And this number is going to go up a lot more. So these converters, enrichers, fabricators, we're seeing this overfeeding happen. I think that you're going to see a lot of inventory buying. This number is going to go up a lot. And we're going to see U3O8 prices are what's next going to go. So obviously UF6 and SWU seeing record prices and, you know, a bunch of volume there. This is where it's at. This is going to be a lot higher. So this chart shows the enrichment services to the U.S. nuclear field operators. Now, if I want you to see on here that a lot of these are not Russian companies. So we've got Areva, we've got Centrus Energy. Although Centrus Energy does also rely on Russian enriched uranium, they do have stuff from France as well and contracts at the lowest prices. We got China Nuclear Energy Industry. We've got Energy Northwest. We got LES, which is Louisiana Energy Services. We got Nucleum Incorporated. Next, we have Russian 10X and Tenem. Then Aramco. USEC, that's the United States Enrichment Corporation. And we have Westinghouse Electric Company, LLC. Now, as you can see, all of the enrichment service sellers to these nuclear field operators, they were not all Russian. And that's because there is other sources out there. It's not just Russia. And I think you'll just see an uptick in a lot of these other companies. Now, that does not mean that the U.S. does not need to get these facilities up and running as fast as possible. We need that Biden $4.3 billion for U.S. enrichment, and this is going to help. If there is a Russian uranium ban, then it obviously signals that the U.S. is going to need to replace it. So that is where it can come from, and that's a very interesting chart. And as far as those numbers that we were talking about, in 2021, the COOs delivered 34 million pounds of U3O8 natural uranium to U.S. and foreign enrichers. U.S. enrichment suppliers received 43% of the feed. The remaining 57% was delivered to foreign enrichment suppliers. The 14 million SWU were purchased under the enrichment service contracts from 11 sellers in 2021. That's what we were talking about earlier. The average price paid by the COs for the 14 million SWU was about $99. And in 2021, with both quantity and price virtually identical to 2020, in 2021, the U.S. origin SWU shares was 19%, and the foreign SWU accounted for the remaining 81%. Foreign origin SWU included 28% from Russia, 17% from the United Kingdom, 13% from Germany, and 11% from the Netherlands. Uranium in fuel assemblies loaded into U.S. nuclear power reactors during 2021 contained 44 million pounds of U3O8 compared to 48 million pounds in 2020. During 2021, 7% of the uranium loaded was U.S. origin uranium, and 93% was foreign origin uranium. So just, for the year of 2021, we relied a lot on foreign uranium. We also relied on foreign enrichment. But I think that as the years go on, we're going to have this nuclear energy renaissance in the U.S. Domestic USA Act, or as I like to call it, the Domestic Uranium Saves America Act. This has 4 co-sponsors. I really hope that this gets released by the committees. And we have pretty much the same thing, the Critical Mineral Classification Improvement Act. Both of these House bills are pretty much amendments just to change the fact that uranium can be labeled as a critical mineral for this U.S. critical minerals list. This is very positive for uranium, especially in the U.S. for U.S. producers. Uranium needs to come from America, a lot of this uranium, North America. So if it's classified as a critical mineral, I think also Biden administration will be able to approve that $4.3 billion for the enrichment. And I think that the Tiger team for the U.S., the Department of Energy, is probably going to buy a lot more domestic uranium. So this is very positive. Both of these we got to keep an eye on. And remember, they're just amendments, so they could actually very fast be released and voted in the Senate and House. You see amendments faster than really anything because there's not much to it. It's, hey, do we need to change this? Yes, it is a critical mineral. It's not just used for power, it's, fuel. It's used for a lot of other things, national security, national defense. Now, if we're looking at uranium stocks, they did somewhat all right in the middle of the week. They started to go up. We saw some nice runs, but as always, they dropped back down. We need the overall market somewhat to be healthy until uranium prices break out past $75+. We can see the price of uranium still huddling down here about $47. Now, in my opinion, this is pretty healthy, okay? We're probably going to break out by, I think, September, October. Prices should be in the mid 50s, and that's when I really think we're going to break out. If in the next few months, we don't see the bills getting passed, if the government doesn't sign this, it's not really the main thesis. Remember, the main thesis for this is the demand from the East, 150 reactors plus coming from China. We also have the long-term 700 million pounds of contracting that needs to come back all around the world. And obviously there's less supply, more demand. That secondary supply is gone. You can see here, I made this chart. Secondary supply compared to 2010 is almost all gone. And, we can't even rely on Russia here. And we can also see that Honeywell next year is coming back. I think that there's going to be a lot of overfeeding happening, and they're going to need that U3O8, to enrich. So we're going to see the demand is already at 205 million pounds. We're going to see this supply deficit here. And if anything happens over here, if Kazatomprom, Russia, we have any issues there, we have Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. When that price of uranium goes up, they're going to probably be buying heavily, as they always do, sometime in the fall. But you can see that's a big chunk taken out, way different than 2010. And I think the prices very soon in uranium, U3O8 side is going to go up very quickly. So let me know below, guys. Do you think that this bill is going to pass? What are the uranium prices going to be if it does? Are we going to break out past $70? And write in the comments below. Also, write down below if you have any questions. I'll answer these in one of my next videos about anything. I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Appreciate you guys watching this. Thank you so much for the support. Hit the like and subscribe button below if you have not already done that.